and we are giving a class this morning on the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, and it's text number 17. Let me read it out for you. This is the Dhritarashtra quits home. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Evam grihesha shaktanam pramattanam tadihaya achakramad avigyata kala paramadushtara. And the translation of that, including the word for word translation, evam, thus, griheshu, in the family affairs, shaktanam, of persons who are too attached, pramattanam, insanely attached, tadihaya, engrossed in such thoughts, achakramat, surpassed, avigyata, imperceptibly, kala, eternal time. Sorry, message came through there. Parama, supremely, dṛṣṭvā, insurmountable. So let's have a look at that translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Insurmountable eternal time imperceptibly overcomes those who are too much attached to family affairs and are always engrossed in their thought. So, insurmountable eternal time imperceptibly overcomes those who are too much attached to family affairs and are always engrossed in their thought. What Prabhupada says about this, and this is quotation marks, I am now happy. I have everything in order. My bank balance is quite enough. I can now give my children enough estate. I am now successful. The poor beggar sannyasi depend on God, but they come to beg from me. Therefore, I am more than the Supreme God. These are some of the thoughts which engross the insanely attached householder who is blind to the passing of eternal time. Our duration of life is measured, and no one is able to enhance it even by a second against the scheduled time ordained by the Supreme Will. Such valuable time, especially for the human being, should be cautiously spent, because even a second passed away imperceptibly cannot be replaced, even in exchange for thousands of golden coins amassed by hard labour. Every second of human life is meant for making an ultimate solution to the problems of life, i.e. repetition of birth and death, and revolving in the cycle of 8,400,000 different species of life. The material body, which is subject to birth and death, disease and old age, is the cause of all sufferings of the living being. Otherwise, the living being is eternal. He is never born, nor does he ever die. I just want to go back on that again. The material body, which is subject to birth and death, diseases and old age, and is the cause of all sufferings of the living being. Otherwise, the living being is eternal. He is never born, nor does he ever die. Foolish persons forget this problem. They do not know at all how to solve the problems of life, but become engrossed in temporary family affairs, not knowing that eternal time is passing away imperceptibly, and that their measured duration of life is diminishing every second, without any solution to the big problem, namely repetition of birth and death, disease and old age. This is called illusion. But such illusion cannot work on one who is awake in the devotional service of the Lord. Yudhiṣṭhira Mahārāja and his brothers, the Pandavas, were all engaged in the service of Lord Sri Krishna, and they had very little attraction for the illusory happiness of the material world. As we have discussed previously, Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was fixed in the service of the Lord Mukunda. the Lord who can award salvation. And therefore he had no attraction even for such comforts of life as are available in the kingdoms of heaven. Because even the happiness obtained on the planet Brahmaloka is also temporary and illusory. Because the living being is eternal, he can be happy only in the eternal abode of the kingdom of God, paravyom, from which no one returns to this region of repeated birth and death, disease and old age. Therefore, any comfort of life or any material happiness which does not warrant an eternal life is but illusion for the eternal living being. Any comfort of life, any material happiness that does not warrant an eternal life is but illusion for the eternal living being. One who understands this factually is learned, and such a learned person can sacrifice any amount of material happiness to achieve the desired goal as Brahma Sokyam, or absolute happiness. Real transcendentalists are hungry for this happiness. And as a hungry man cannot be made happy by any comforts of life minus foodstuff, so that man hungry for eternal absolute happiness cannot be satisfied by any amount of material happiness. Therefore, the instruction described in this verse cannot be applied to Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira or his brothers and mother. It was meant for persons like Dhritarashtra, from whom Vidura came especially to impart lessons. Srimad-Bhagavatam Swami Nitinamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nirvishesha Shani Mani Pastita Deshitarni Vanchakalpa Trubhischa Kripasinavivach Patitana Pavanivyo Vaishnavivyo Namo Namaha. What a power-packed purport we have here. There's several things which come to mind, but one of the major things initially is that we explained. Prabhupada explains how the body is the material body is the subject to birth and death, and the cause of all sufferings of the living being. Of course, the body is got because we haven't been able to control the mind. The mind is the is the culprit, is the subtle body, and unless we're controlling that mind, it can go all over the universe. Basically, there's no limit to where it won't go. So I've often thought of something actually, and it kind of reverts back to a something which I actually experienced myself when I was about 2, 3, 4 years old. I can't remember exactly, but it was I couldn't understand what it was. It was a kind of an amazing kind of vision of revolving bodies, and I couldn't give any kind of substance or any kind of meaning to it. When I came to Krishna consciousness, it started to become a little bit more clear that we are actually constantly on this Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshi arjuna tishtate brahmayam sarva bhutani yantri rudani maya. Yantra is like as on a machine made of the material energy. So that vision that I had way back then, and it was like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. I can't remember even what it was, but it was very vivid. It's one of my vivid memories from that time. It was like a yantra, like a machine made of the material energy of revolving bodies, and that's what's been spoken about here. You know, we're getting 8,400,000 species of life, and the bodies I was thinking of that were human bodies actually. But now let me get back onto that. What can you imagine? We're just about to leave our body. We're just dying. What comes in front of our eyes? It's said that somebody who's drowning, their whole lifetime comes in front of their eyes in an instant, and that's a near-death experience. A lot of people have explained that as well, or have experienced that, and have lived to tell the tale afterwards. So that is a very interesting, how would you say, that's a very critical time, because whatever you're thinking of at the time of that, to that state you attain without fail. That's what Bhagavad Gita explains that. So that what's going to pop in front of our eyes? And I don't know if anyone else gets this understanding or gets this thought that sometimes we're attracted, say, by the opposite sex, right? We're just attracted, and we are, some vision of trying to enjoy what that person might come into the mind, whatever. Our Krishna consciousness really is measured by how much we neglect that kind of thought. I mean, Yamunacharya, he said that anytime his mind thinks of sex life, he spits out the thought. That type of control of the mind, control of the senses needs to be there. And it's just a detachment from the mind, because the mind is going to throw up any amount of stuff to make to oneself. I mean, look, the whole pornography industry is based on that whole idea of flooding your mind with all these images, and then you think, I want, even though the enjoyment may be very meager. Still, that is what it's based on, and the mind fickleness, its inability to resist that type of mentality. So, but that is what's going to happen at the point of death. We're not going to be tested by, oh, there's an ice cream van going by. Oh, no, I'm not the body. I'm not attached to that. No, we're going to be tested by what we deeply, inverted commas, want. Do we want Krishna or do we want Maya? And this is what this whole verse is about here. Yudhiṣṭhira, Vidura is coming back to try to rescue his brother, who's been completely absorbed in family illusions. Like in your next body, you might have a hog's body. So, to the person that you loved so much, loved in inverted commas, you've forgotten about that body already, and now you're in a hog's body, and you're trying to enjoy Mrs. Hog, or Mrs. Hog's trying to enjoy Mr. Hog. Do you know what I'm coming from? We get so absorbed in this temporary kind of family, what's called, talk about propaganda, like it's constant propaganda. You're this, you're this family member, you want this, these family members are yours, whatever. So this is who you are, and therefore you have to spend all your time in, absolutely adoring this whole family situation, and just get absorbed and get lost in it without understanding the whole nature of the whole thing. That it is a temporary situation in amidst millions of other temporary situations. And it's because of that attraction that we have, that so-called attraction for enjoyment in this world. So that's the first sentence here. I am now happy. I have everything in order. My bank balance is quite enough. I can now give my children enough estate. I'm now successful. This craziness, which is there. And therefore, what are you going to be thinking of at the point of death? Thinking, oh yes, I'm a successful human being. Glug, 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 glug. You committed so many sinful activities. Glug, glug, glug. Shoot you out in the body of a hog. There, enjoy again. Even Lord Brahma was attracted when it was Lord Indra in the body of a hog. He didn't want to leave it. He was stuck in there, and he said, no, I have my obligations, when he was to go back to the heavenly planet. But it is explained here that the Pandavas and Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, Vidura, but especially the Pandavas, they had no interest. They were completely detached. They had everything. If you ever go to the beautiful temple in Florence, and you have your vaccine passport, and you can travel again, going to that temple, you'll see there's amazing work by the great artist Gyananjana, and it is all to do with the Mahabharata. And there's some incredible portraits that he's done of the Pandavas returning to Hastinapur. And these great big people, massive, they're coming, walking towards you. They're stately, they're lordly, they're wonderful, they're absolutely, it gives you sort of, it makes you shiver, like just think, wow, look at these people, these are incredible. These people had everything, and yet they weren't interested in it. They just weren't interested. That's what we're talking about here. These people were focused on Krishna, and they had everything. And yet, people are lusting after movie stars who are incredibly covered personalities. I mean, they have everything. They have the amount of cocaine they want. They have the amount of women and sex, and they have riches, and they have designer clothes. They have designer houses. They have, and it's gone in a second. It's finished. But this is what everybody else is lusting after. They see a beautiful girl or a beautiful man walking down the road, and they're thinking, "Oh, I could enjoy. So this is the mind. His mind is being programmed into. This isn't us. This is not us. So one of them then, even if you can, if you're able to control that, and you're kind of satisfied, then you have your nice house in the suburbs, you have your gate, your lock gate, your what you call it, remotely controlled gate. You have your new fascia board on your house. You have your new cameras. There's all these things that are going on, and you're kind of trying to take shelter in these things, but at the same time, you're like you're being burnt by Maya. The three prongs of of Kali. It was a trident up your, whatever. It's so. You're trying to make out that you're happy, but you're suffering. There's a phrase in Irish which is a great phrase. It's called Goira Sean Doite. Means the laughter of burnt Johnny, and the Johnny is just Sean. He's a character from, and he basically, he's laughing, but actually he's been burnt. But he's just trying to put on a face that he's not been burnt, but he's burnt. Can you imagine a burn? It's like but you're just like you're trying to laughing about it, and. So this is the nature of the material. You're trying to say that I'm happy, everything's great, I'm wonderful, but you're being burnt by birth, death, disease, and old age, and you're taking shelter of a family situation. Oh, my family's happy, I'm very happy, everything's wonderful. I've got this car, I've got this. This is the reality. But you have to get to the stage. We have to get to the stage of being satisfied in that situation, being very nice to your family members, to be very compassionate to your family members, to be compassionate to everybody, ultimately, to live in this world, but to realize in this world. And this is what learned means. This is what Prabhupada says at the end of the purport. This is what learned means. Therefore, any comfort of life or material happiness which does not warrant an eternal life is but illusion for the eternal being. One who understands this factually is learned, and such a learned person can sacrifice any amount of material happiness to achieve the desired goal known as Brahma Sukham, or absolute happiness. So that's what learned means. This is if you're learned, you will not be attracted by these things. You will be happy, and you will be able to give happiness to others. That is really what learned means. I mean, the other kind of energy, which is I want, means I am the center and I want everyone to glorify me. Bhaktaram yugatabhasham sarva loka maheshwaram. Like, I'm the greatest friend of everybody. I'm the controller. I'm the, we're just trying to take the place of Krishna ultimately. And we haven't a hope in hell of doing that. Anyway, it just doesn't happen. We're not. That's not who we are. So the reason I'm doing this, I'm talking about this, is because, I want to be happy. I also want other people to be happy if I can, because that is also happiness in other people's happiness. That's a high platform, of course. I mean, that you see Krishna in the other person, and you want that person to be happy, or you want that person to see Krishna. But this is the devotee. This is Vidura. This is what he's done. He's coming back for his brother. Okay, there's an attachment for his brother, but there's attachment for the person. So that's how he can make them the most advancement. But here's Vidura 5,000 years later. He's still having an influence on society. So he's still having that influence there. And so anyway, that's one part of the class which I wanted to try to kind of graphically get through to myself, and because it's a talk, it's of any value to anybody else, I'm just trying to present again what Srila Prabhupada is presenting here. We've read Srila Prabhupada, but Prabhupada wants us to actually try to expand and to elucidate, or to look at it in different lights. Obviously discussion would be even better, something which we'll try to do in the near future. There's another thing another aspect which I wanted to speak about, and that's the idea of Srila Prabhupada being tri-kala-gya, which means that he's able to see past, present and future. Prabhupada is talking about woke here. I don't know if anyone's picked up on that in the purport. I mean, that's the great phrase at the moment. Prabhupada wrote this in the 50s. But Prabhupada talks about, but this such illusion cannot work on one who is awake in the devotional service of the Lord. Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj and his brothers, the Pandavas, were all engaged in the service of Lord Shri Krishna, and they had very little attraction for material happiness of this material world. So they were awake, they were awake to Krishna. They were awake to devotional service. They were awake to their own situation in the world as servant of God, as non-only enjoyer, as servant basically, and of the whole idea to perform devotional service, and that is our constitutional position. They were awake to that, and they weren't caught up in the desires, the flickering desires, as being who they are. They were awake to that mirage or that illusion. That's quite incredible. Ridananda Maharaj makes a very interesting point about when we wake up from a dream, then we kind of, this is our real situation. And with the dream, even though we were very much absorbed in it, we were thinking about it, we just dismissed that. But actually the spiritual life is like that as well, and this material world is just like a dream as well. And when we wake up from that, then we are eternal. And this is what Prabhupada is saying in the purport. He had no attraction for the comforts of life, and therefore because even the happiness obtained in the Brahma-loka is temporary and illusory. And because the living being is eternal, he can be happy only in the eternal abode of the kingdom of God, for which no one returns to this region of repeated birth, death, disease, and old age. So this is where we're talking about becoming awake. And like if anybody goes around and starts talking about their dream to anybody else, no one's going to be interested really. I mean, they might give them some, oh, is that what your dream was? Oh, really? But then if they spend their whole life talking about their dream, I had this dream last night and I was, no one's going to be interested, because everyone says, well, it's only a dream, when you stop dreaming. Well, that's the same thing with this life. Do you ever come across parents who are always talking about their kids, how wonderful their kids are? That can be really boring. I mean, it can be a real bore for people. Oh, my kids are this, and they did this, a little John, and then he went, and then he did this, and then you know what else he did, and he did, it's a boring boring scenario. So we actually have to be awake to this. So, this is a dream that we're in, and we need to get awake to understand what our eternal nature is within this dream. And then, therefore, we can actually start to act properly. I'm talking about the different aspects of Prabhupada being tri-kala-gya. So he's seeing about this whole woke society in 2020. And but Prabhupada's woke was much more substantial, and because he gives a very great clarity about what that awakened state is. The other one is self-sufficiency. Is something I've been banging on about for the last while. It's just a buzzword that you kind of have to start to say. The one world, which is also another, is a correct analysis. But let's see how Prabhupada has to say about self-sufficiency. Very, very interesting. I came across it in a purport in the Adi Leela. Adi Leela, chapter 5, text number 51. So I'm going to read it out. And it's about material scientists, actually. I'm going to give you some philosophy first of all, but I hope that's okay, and you stay awake for it. I find it difficult sometimes, but anyway. Material nature has two different phases. Okay, it's simple enough. The aspect called pradhan supplies the material ingredients for the cosmic development, and the aspect called maya causes the manifestation of our ingredients, which are temporary, like foam in the ocean. Okay, that's probably got everybody on the back foot. But pradhan is all the ingredients: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, ego, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, the 5 objects of the senses, the 5 working senses, or the working senses, and the subtle mind, intelligence, false ego. So anyway, that's the pradhan. And then the aspect called maya causes the manifestation of our ingredients. So Krishna glances, and then all those he impregnates it with the living entities and then the maya starts to come. The living entities are in bodies, basically. In reality, the temporary manifestations of material nature are originally caused by the spiritual glance of the Lord. Okay, we know that. Krishna impregnates the living entities into the situation. The personality of Godhead is the direct or remote cause of creation, and material nature is the indirect or immediate cause. So Krishna empowers the material energy to bring us about, to bring this happening. It's not like, okay, Krishna is the remote cause, he glances, but Maya is the just like the womb, the mother is the mother of the child, and the father is the father of the child. But actually, they're not really, because the child is eternal. This is the material nature though that's working. The 3 modes of nature: birth, death, disease, and old age. So this is all going on, basically. All right. Have I lost everybody? Now here's then who somebody comes in here and starts to take credit for all of this. Who is it? The material scientists. Materialistic scientists, puffed up by their magical changes their so-called inventions have brought about: airplane, phone, camera, video, electricity. They cannot see the real potency of Godhead behind matter. They just cannot see it. They think, this is it, I'm using it, so therefore that's all there is. But they haven't seen that God is the remote cause. He set the whole thing in operation, and that Maya is also part of him. It's the immediate cause. So they kind of try to get in and control Maya. That's what happens next, okay? Therefore, the jugglery of science is gradually leading people to a godless civilization at the cost of the goal of human life. So God isn't there. We're controlling the science. So let's teach that in schools. Let everybody, abortion is fine. So that's what they're trying to do in Ireland at the moment. They're trying to tell the 13, 14-year-olds, yes, abortion is fine, yes. Don't be a prude. What are you talking about? They think they're in control of material nature. That's the problem. They don't see the remote cause of Krishna behind it. They don't see Maya covering them, who is Krishna's agent. And therefore they think that they're in control and they're trying to control. Having missed the goal of life, materialists run after self-sufficiency. We can look after this. We can look after this planet. We're going to Mars so that we can we can utilize there as well. We have the method, we have the technology to do this. Not knowing that material nature is already self-sufficient by the grace of God. So the material nature is already self-sufficient. We don't need your self-sufficiency. It's already there. So that's why permaculture is good, because it's trying to utilize actually something which is already there. Nature's already functioning. You're just complementing, you're trying to help. You understand the material, but you have to understand as well, higher than that is Krishna's in control of that material nature as well. Thus creating a colossal hoax in the name of civilization. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Like, who else is seeing this? Prabhupada is seeing this. Thus creating a colossal hoax in the name of civilization. They create an imbalance in the natural self-sufficiency of material nature. Material nature is already set up that way. Krishna set it up, perfectly set up. But they create a colossal hoax in the name of civilization. We're in control. Okay, again, I'm probably at the risk of being ungrateful. I'm not ungrateful. But at the same time, I want to point out what is going on in the name of trying to control material nature. At the moment, we're discussing a development plan. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm very appreciative that I have a beautiful park that's outside that I can walk in and chant in, and it's thanks to the hard work of a lot of individuals who are, trying to make sure that there is proper balance in the neighborhood that I live in. So I appreciate that. Don't get me, I appreciate it. But it's coming, material nature already provides millions of those things, but we've created a colossal hoax of a civilization that we have to get into massive detail about how to create what's already there, to create the self-sufficiency and a nice situation, but it's already given by material nature. But we've screwed it up, and therefore we have to come back and try to do it again. And then we call that self-sufficiency. So there's so many then commissions. Like our new development plan, which I tell is much better. It's a better mode than just forgetting about everything and sitting back and drinking wine. There's a lot of people working extremely hard in complex endeavor, also to have a democracy to try to please other people in the sense of giving them a voice. They're making a huge endeavor to try to give a level playing field, and again, congrats to them, and that should be there in society. But it's become so complex that nobody's able to do anything really, and they do something, and then it's completely upset again by some greedy pig, which will come in and ruin everything for their own gratification, so they can make loads of money. So, and yet we're meant to trust this whole scientific, solutions to the world problems. Who's in control? So this is why we have a colossal hoax of a civilization. Again, I want to stress there are some very good people there trying to do some amazing things. They're trying their best with what they have, and they have the right intention. But if they're starting from the wrong premise, that they're in control, and they don't see that God is in control, they're going to make a mess of it. And there won't be. I was at a meeting last night, and there was some person that they were they're in this whole planning process, and they said, I've been in this planning process for 30 years, and I'm frustrated by the fact that So after 30 years, you're frustrated, but that's what's going to happen. You're going to be frustrated. There's going to be somebody coming in there and screwing the whole thing up for you, because that's the adi-bautika, adi-daivika, and adi-atmika. Now, again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do something. We should try to do something. As devotees, we're trying to do something, but we're trying to present the ultimate cause, which is Krishna, and we're trying to reintroduce Krishna consciousness. I mean, being conscious of God is the only way that we can be happy in this situation. and to give it to others is what Krishna is trying to set up. He's trying to set up a civilization with God in the center, and our acharyas are trying to do that. And all the other completely. I mean, should we explain abortion to 12-year-old children, 14-year-old children? You won't have these type of questions. Should we explain about? Anyway, I won't get into the whole thing, and I'm not going to get into all that actually at the moment, because it could lead down certain pathways that you have to. But actually, by trying to solve all these problems, we've just created more problems, more unnecessary problems. People cannot be happy; they're not satisfied. They just cannot be happy. You could say, I'm not happy either because I can see the thing, but that's what the devotee is trying to. Like, I'm not saying I'm a devotee, but I'm trying to serve the devotees who see that there is the unhappiness in the world, and are trying to help help people out of it. Like, for instance, in the Titanic, if the people are going underwater and you have a boat, what are you going to do? Are you going to let them say, okay, well, I got my boat? Or are you going to try to help people that are in the water? These people are perfectly good people, probably better people than I'll ever be. But still, my duty there is to try to help the acharyas and to try to help them as well. And believe it or not, this is the position of happiness. There's happiness in helping others. And there's happiness in serving Krishna. Okay, so I went on a little bit longer than I normally go on. I try to keep it to a certain amount, but it was just these things were coming up today, and I wanted to do a little glorification of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the most wonderful spiritual master who's enlightened so many of his disciples and so many wonderful devotees who are trying to spread this Krishna consciousness all over the world. And I just wanted to do a little bit and to praise the amazing work that they're doing. And thank you very much, anybody who's there beside the four walls who's been listening to this little piece. And I hope you have a fantastic day, because this day could be the day that Krishna actually enlightens and enlivens you and gives you the energy to bring Krishna consciousness en masse to many, 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 many people. Or it could be a part of that wonderful, flowering of the Krishna consciousness movement, and you're just done an amazing part in it today. So thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srimad-Bhagavatam.